College Football Nation. We are back with a 14-game slate. This is going to be a fun afternoon of football. Not every game is even on the slate today, but there are definitely some clear game environments we're going to want to target. We're going to have a lot of fun this morning. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Joel. We had another good, solid week. It's been cash is king lately for me. I don't know about you. GPPs have been okay, but really the cash gains have been striking us. We've been getting a lot of good names right and a lot of value right. And I think it's this slate. And we talked about it pre-show. There are a bunch of game environments we want to be in, but there's a bunch of value out there as well.
For sure. And there's a lot of chalk this week, right? There's some clearly mispriced guys that are going to be very chalky. Me, for one, I'm having a hard time getting away from the chalk. So just trying to find other ways to get different. But we'll go through it all right now. We're going to break down the entire slate as we always do. There'll be a few games that we should be able to skip over. But let's dive right in to get moving. The first game we can look at right here is the TCU Baylor game. We look at it here, Dave.
Well, I mean, I think, I don't want to fall in love with Dugan, but I'm going to be playing Dugan for sure, right? I think Baylor has turned into a team that you can really score a lot of points against. We've seen it with BYU early in the season and some other teams following suit. So I think Dugan's in play for sure. And I might want to pair him. I love Quentin Johnson. We all do. But I'm trying to think if I go a little cheaper and look down towards Davis or Barber this week as a 2 or 3.
Interesting. I like it. Dugan's the guy that's capable of having, breaking the ceiling any week with his running ability as well as his passing. But for me this week, actually, who I really like from TCU, I think Kendre Miller. I think he is one of those elite backs in the top tier. Getting him in the 6K range, I think, is at a pretty nice discount. So I think everyone on the TCU side is in play, but my preference on the TCU team is going to be Miller. On the Baylor side, Richard Reese in recent weeks hasn't gotten, the bulk share of the carries like he was earlier in the year. I don't think he's lost the job. I do think that potential is back. It's risky, but I think Richard Reese is someone that will make my player pool, but that's probably it on the Baylor side.
Yeah, I might. If I want to get real risky in GPPs, I might get some Craig Williams in there. He had that game a couple weeks ago, 25 for 192. But yeah, I prefer Reese. I just don't know what they're doing over there. They're just trying to figure it out. And let's answer, do we play FanDuel? I'll be honest. I play it lightly, more in some NBA, NFL, not for college.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just like the tournament selection much better on DraftKings for college. If you got tournaments you like, it's totally fine. The pricing on FanDuel is a little softer, so you can probably play more of the guys you like. But unfortunately, I really break down the DraftKings slate, so I don't have too many plays on the FanDuel side for you.
I agree, and it's more of a touchdown heavy slate. That's why in college, there are a lot of touchdowns, obviously, but a lot of yards being gained. I just like the scoring better for DraftKings for college.
For sure. All right, let's take a look at actually, I have a question for you. Do you know why it's kind of structured a little differently where there's a few 12 o'clock games and there's a ton of 2 o'clock games, which is not the norm?
No, but there's just not a lot of 12 o'clock games on the schedule at all today.
Yeah, it's weird.
I think there's like 8 or 10. Yeah.
Anyway, Indiana, Michigan State. Neither team is very good defensively. The problem is neither team is very good offensively either. So there's not a ton to like just because I don't see a ton of playmakers here. At this current time, even as bad as Michigan State's defense is, I kind of think Indiana's offense is untouchable with the injuries that they have. There may be a few guys I consider on the Michigan State side, namely Berger at running back, who is getting 15 to 20 carries, and Jalen Reed, their top receiver, who is capable of going off for a big game, even though he's been relatively disappointing thus far this season.
Yeah, Reed's my favorite in this game overall. I think 5,600 is a good price. Indiana ranks bottom third in the whole college nation against wide receivers and passing yards allowed. Reed, I think, is a great spot. So he's probably the only one I'm playing in this whole game, but at 5,600, I think he's got a chance to pop. He's averaging almost, 16 DK points. So I think that's a good price in a good game environment.
All right. Let's keep this moving over. We'll look at the Illinois-Michigan game. This is the opposite of a game environment we look for in fantasy, right? We want teams that score a lot, that run a lot of plays, and both these teams are defensive teams that like to run the ball. So that doesn't mean you cannot play anyone, but this is definitely not a game you want to look to target. The only guys in this game that I'll even be looking at, honestly, it's probably only one guy. It's probably Corum. I know some people will consider Chase Brown, but against this Michigan defense, I just don't think this is the spot for Brown. But Corum is matchup proof.
I agree. There's a part of me that wants to get J.J. McCarthy in my lineups, but strictly cash. I just think he'll be a steady flow for you, 20-ish, 20-plus points, but he's not going to break the slate. So I could consider him in cash. I don't like him pretty much anywhere else. But it's Corum, and unfortunately, I guess we're off the Edwards train, right? He's just bad week last week. I just don't know if I can rely on his – even at 5,800, I don't think I can play a little Edwards today anywhere.
Well, 1,500 is actually a bit up in price. He was 4K range, and if they're playing a cupcake matchup where the game's over by halftime, and he might play a little bit more in the second half. That's the type of play you play him. But at the raised price against the more formidable foe, I probably will pass.
Yeah, and we thought that was going to be last week against Nebraska, right? And it was a dream situation. He gets 1 point, so he's got to come back and prove it to me a little bit now. So yeah, I'm passing.
All right. How about this Wisconsin-Nebraska game? It's another one where it's probably not, the two most explosive offenses that we want to target. This Wisconsin defense is above average, so Nebraska offense is below average. Not a great combination. The only player in this game that I'm really interested in is Braylon Allen on Wisconsin, their running back. He's their go-to guy. I think at 7K, his prices come down a bit. This is a good matchup for him, so I think he is in a really good spot here.
Yeah, I think that's all we need to say on this matchup. I do think Allen's in a great spot. I mean, we've seen Allen. Haven't we seen him? Let's look. I think he's been in the 8K range before.
Oh, well, usually
85, 87, and now we get him at 7. So I think he's a really, really nice play today, especially when we get into some of our other picks. I think you can pay up for a couple studs at running back and receiver today. He's one of them.
Yep, I'm with you. For some reason, he seems very underpriced today. All right, let's go over to this Washington State Arizona game. This is one of the game environments I actually like. I think this game, Arizona is a great team to target for DFS purposes. They score a lot of points and they can't stop anyone. So It just means that the game's got to flow. I think DeLora is in play on the Arizona side. They have a pretty dynamic offense. He throws a lot. They have 3 wide receivers that are all pretty good in Cowing, Singer, and McMillan. You can play any of them, honestly. But they're all pretty expensive, so getting 3 of them in a lineup is going to be tough. It's hard to get all 3 guys to hit, but I think you can pair DeLora with any of the 3 as a good starting point.
I agree. I think for me, I'm just sitting on DeLora and Cowing. I know the other ones are solid, but if I'm just going to do a reduced rate, and it's not that big of a jump down, I think I'll just stick with Cowing here.
Yeah, he's definitely the number 1 for sure.
And then David, their next guy, Singer's going for like only 4 or 5 less. So it's just not, or 9, but it's still not worth it. I don't think. I think you stick with Cowan, the number 1. Yeah,
I'm totally fine with that. I do, especially in these bigger tournaments. I think it's okay to take a shot on one of these other 2 guys, but yeah, the number 1 guy is definitely Cowan.
Would you play 3 though in a bigger tournament? Would you go Cowan? Yeah,
I just think they're too expensive to play 2 of them because they both have to do so good that it's hard to make it work with 3 of them.
I agree.
Yeah. On the other side of the ball, I mean, the chalk of the day is going to be Nakia Watson. At 3,800, he's been the bell cow. He's been awesome the last 2 weeks. You couldn't ask for a better matchup. The issue you're getting with Watson is he's going to be over 50% owned. Everyone sees this. It's a misprice.
80%.
So you just got to figure out, what your game plan is. Listen, there's also a possibility he doesn't hit, right? He can go for 15 points. It's not guaranteed. So there is some leverage in going away from him, but it's risky because when the $3,800 guy, if he does score 2 touchdowns and you don't have him, you're toast.
I agree. I think you almost got to expose him as much as you think he'll be owned, right? So if you're playing 50 lineups, play him in 25. I think you got to play him that much.
I kind of agree because if you take too big of a swing on fading him and you miss, your day's over. That's it. Because everyone's going to. So, play with that how you will. The only other guy I want to mention on the Washington State side is Renard Bell. He's coming off injury. The coach even said he might be in a reduced role, but this is really their best receiving weapon when healthy. So the ability of him to make a big play or two and still get there at 5,600, I think, is there. But with knowledge, knowing that they said he's going to be in a reduced role, I'm going to go sparingly.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I do think there's some value in potentially playing some of the quarterback too, Ward. And if you're going to play Ward, I think you can play him with Watson, but you're going to want to probably more maybe sit Watson down and grab one of those receivers. I think Bell's a nice play.
Yeah, yep, for sure. So love this game environment. Definitely feel free to get exposure here. And then we'll follow this up with another game. It's another really strong environment. You almost want to play every week against West Virginia. They are pretty atrocious on defense. So, a lot to like about Kansas State. Andrew Martinez is out this week. So you'll get Will Howard, who I think has, he's played 3 weeks. He's gone over 20 points each week. And the best, if not, he's played Oklahoma State, which is horrible. It was maybe the only team as bad as West Virginia. But in a good matchup, Will Howard has shown that he can get you there. So I'm totally okay with playing Howard, but my favorite play on the Kansas State side is Deuce Vaughn, who's their playmaker. Yep. I still think he's underpriced. I think he should be in the 8K range. So they get him at 7,400. He's probably their number one receiver as well as their running back. I think that's a smash play today.
Yeah, Howard's played pretty well too in Adrian Martinez's absence, or should I say in games where he's had to fill in. He's averaged 24 points in just these 3 games recently. So I do like him, but Deuce Vaughn, absolutely. You think of backup quarterbacks, and now Howard has some seasoning, right? He started for this team before. But where's your safety blanket? It's usually tight end, running back. And I think Deuce Vaughn is going to be the recipient of that today. So I always tend to look at backup quarterbacks and then tend to look at, is their running back a good pass catcher? Deuce is one of the best. He might be my favorite running back on the board today. He's up there.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I agree. Honestly, it's Deuce or Watson because of the cheap price. So
yes.
At receiver, I think my favorite play on the Kansas State side is Malik Knowles. If we get word that he's fully healthy, he's definitely hit or miss because he can go for 2 catches and 20 yards. But we've seen him break off those big plays, and he gets one of those big ones where he goes for 80 yards and a score. That's more than pays off his price tag.
Yeah, I agree. Knowles is my favorite. If I'm not playing Knowles, I might not play anyone. This past game's too unpredictable, especially with Howard there. Howard's a runner, if we remember right. This past game, I'm likely fading, but I could play Knowles at 4,800, no problem.
And I have no problem playing Howard with Vaughn because Vaughn catches the ball plenty. Yes. But he could throw into Vaughn, so you can play them together. Almost play Vaughn as a receiver with Howard. On the West Virginia side, they spread it out too much. There's too many guys. There's not enough of a funnel to really focus on anyone. Ford Wheaton, for what he does, is way overpriced. I'm just going to avoid them here. The only guy on this side that I might be interested in is Tony Mathis because he's under 5K. He does seem to get a majority of the carry. So, if he scores a touchdown or two, he'll certainly pay off that price tag.
Yeah, I like it. I'm with you to not play too much on the West Virginia side. So, yeah, Mathis and Ford Wheaton's just too much. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. The next game we'll head over to is the game of the probably day, Houston and ECU. Listen, before I got my eyes on ownership for this week, I was just totally zoned in on this game. And it was just like, almost every lineup was going to be a game environment of Houston and ECU in every way I could. Ownership came out, and it's everyone else is doing the same thing. It's clearly the best game environment. You're going to have to, everyone's playing this game. It's going to be, you're going to have to eat some ownership if you want to do it. I'm not going away from it. I'm still going to be playing it. I came off him a little bit just because I didn't want to just, be all in on the chalk. But there's a lot to like about this game environment. Houston can't stop anybody, but they can score. So for DFS purposes, this is exactly the type of game you want to target. Without a ton of value this week, Ehlers is my favorite value quarterback considering he's under 6,500. He has plenty of playmakers on offense. A lot to love about Ehlers on the ECU side. Keaton Mitchell at 7,100 is certainly in play as he's their go-to back. And then, the interesting, I think, conversation for the ECU side is going to be with the receivers. And Winston's their number one. He's the one that comes with the most pedigree. But CJ Johnson's the guy that's been coming on of late at 800 less. I think I actually prefer CJ Johnson to Winstead. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great call. That's right on my notes here. I think, looking at Ayler is one of my favorite, but CJ Johnson is my number one receiver to take on the ECU side for sure. I just think the value and the potential here. I love CJ today. I have a star next to him. Big time play.
Yeah, and it's what he does. He makes big plays. They throw to him deep. So from a DFS perspective, he has the potential to really go off because he can make a few big plays that kind of get you there. On the Houston side, it's the same as always. You know what Houston wants to do. It's gonna be Tune running and throwing, and he's going to his number one target, which is Nathaniel Dell, the best receiver maybe in the country, definitely on this slate. I don't need to spend too much time talking about Tune and Dell. Everyone knows who they are at this point. They're two of the better players. We're going to be playing them. But I think there's guys that we can pair them with that get more interesting, right? So Sam Brown, I don't know why they don't have his salary up. He's what, 42?
No, so he's 4,200, but if you go and search for him, you can pick him. You can't pick him off here, so it's really weird. So
he's available. I don't know why it's like that.
He's one. Look, we love Dell. I think Sam Brown at 4,200, I'll play more of than Dell today.
Well, yeah, Brown seems to be underpriced. He's a fixture in this offense. He's heavily involved. They have to throw the ball. I'm going to be playing both of them pretty heavily. I think this is a great spot. And especially for looking at value at receiver, Sam Brown is probably the best value receiver you're going to find under 5K.
I totally agree.
The other guy I'll mention, I think is on play is Keyshawn Carter. Keyshawn Carter, had a few big games recently. Last week, he did not play at all, or only had a few targets. But before that, he had 2 100-yard games. So I think you can play Keyshawn. I prefer Brown, but Carter's in play as well.
Yeah, and I think Golden could be in play. He's coming off 2 games in a row, 2 touchdowns. Granted, those were games where they scored an average of 53 points. So maybe, somebody had to score. I get it. 5,300, I could see myself, but I'll be doing it with mixing him in with maybe, like you just said, Carter or a Brown. I probably won't pair him with Dell.
That makes sense. Yeah, that totally makes sense. But, I mean, I'll try to touch on that one thing. It's funny. Houston is one of maybe 3 to 5 teams that are likely to score 50 points. And it's really because it's the fact that they pair that really bad defense with an explosive offense. So every game they're into shootout because teams score on them and they score right back and it goes back and forth. So it doesn't mean they're going to do it every week, but if you're looking for that upside potential, they certainly have it.
Agreed.
All right. Let's look at this BC and Notre Dame game. The BC side is going to be pretty tough. This is a good Notre Dame defense. They don't even have Jerkovich, their quarterback. The only guy that can really be considered, in my opinion, on the BC side is Zay Flowers, who's an NFL receiver. He's very explosive. But at 7K against a good D with a backup quarterback, that's a pretty big risk.
It is, but I'm going to see myself getting some Zay in my lineups. I just think, even though it's a good defense, there is nobody else on BC. Just absolutely nobody else. So I just think they're going to have to force feed on the ball. And, if Notre Dame gets up big, which probably is part of the script, I think that's even better for Flowers. They just back off a little, keep everything underneath, get your volume in. So I'm still going to play him, but I agree. There is some risk here that he could be a dud based upon Notre Dame's defense and the game environment.
Yeah, I totally agree. On the Notre Dame side, it's the running game. This is a great running team. They have an awesome offensive line. They want to run the ball 50 times. There's multiple guys who get the ball to. My approach this week is going to be a Stime. I think Logan Diggs has been getting more carries. I think people are starting to go to Logan Diggs. Seems like a week to zag when everyone else is zigging, right? I think Stime gets back into the driver's seat at 5,700. He also is bigger back. He might be the goal line back. He's more likely to score a touchdown. So I'll pay a little bit more and go with his teammate, but I think both his teammate and Diggs are in play. Yeah,
I agree. It's a teammate. It feels like he's the better back, and he's definitely the more powerful back. But in the end, they're sharing that backfield. It almost feels like Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon kind of, the way they work with the Packers. And everybody thought Dillon might be in for his best year this year. It hasn't turned out that way. That's just how I see these guys, but I do like his teammate better.
I'm with you. All right, Georgia, Kentucky. I don't think we even need to open this one up. These are two good defenses. Georgia spreads the ball around, and Bowers is probably the best playmaker, but I'm only not that interested. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game, and I'm not going to try and target against this Georgia defense.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is if you're really dumpster diving, looking for some value, Kyrus Jackson out of Georgia had a nice game breakout last week, popped 10.9 fantasy points when he was sitting under 4K. Now he's 4K. Maybe they're trying to get him the ball a little bit more now. We'll see, but that could be one you could go. You're looking for some value on an offense that will score somewhere, somehow. He pops a touchdown. He gets you value.
Yeah, I like that call. Okay, now we can look at this Texas-Kansas game. This is a more friendly fantasy environment. I think there's plenty that you can like and look at here. I'm excited to see Jalen Daniels back, who's been a superstar for fantasy purposes this year. It looks like he's going to play, or it sounds like he's probable to play today. I think my only concern is, will they try and ease into him and not make him run too much, or not try and get him hurt after having a few weeks off? So maybe they play a little safe with them, which could be a little concerning. They've also kind of changed their offensive identity a bit, where now they run the ball 30 times a game with Devin Neal. If they continue that trend at 6,400, Neal looks like a really good option on the Kansas side. And my favorite Kansas pass catcher these days is actually their tight end Fairchild, because he's constantly in the 3K range. They've been going to him pretty much they have 4 pass catchers. They get spread out evenly. The other 3 guys are much more expensive, so I'll go for the cheapest one. That seems to me like it's all a coin flip anyway.
All right, I like it. For me, I still think there's value in Jane Daniels, like you're saying. He had a pretty good game against them last year. I do think he'll be more involved in the pass game. So when you think of that, I do like where you're headed in Kansas. Neal had a good game against Texas last year. Let's remember that game. That was a 57-56, just absolute shootout. The people that remember the most are those wearing that burnt orange on the other side. And I think it's going to be Bijan, and a little bit more Bijan today. 9,100, I'm not scared of. I do think this game environment sets up well, and they're going to want to physically dominate the line of scrimmage. I know they're going to be playing that game over and over again to the Texas players, and they're going to come out with some ferocity here. I think it's in the running game. So I love Bijan today.
I'm with you. I mean, Bijan's a great play every week, but this one, especially where it's a great game by a lot of points scored, this is a spot where he could go nuclear. I think it's worth mentioning Xavier Worthy, because Kansas can't hit the pass, so he's their best pass catcher. They haven't had the most explosive passing game this year, but he's the guy. If someone were to go off, it'd be probably him. I also like Jatavion Sanders. I always like Jatavion Sanders, but he's now been a fixture in this offense at 4,500. He's one of my favorite value receivers as well.
Could you get in with Quinn Ewers anywhere? I mean, 6,900 isn't cheap. I mean, it's not bad, right, for a quarterback, but he's only popped over 20 twice. I feel like, if anything, he's cash game. I don't think I can GPP him.
I feel like anyone against Kansas is in play. For that purpose, I do, because like you said, if this becomes a 52-50 game, obviously he's got to score some points. But that's maybe a small exposure in case that happens. I don't, like you said, he hasn't done it much this year. There's not a lot of confidence going to it. I would play him with the thought that this could be one of the games that goes way over, and if that's the case, he'll probably get there.
Yeah. So maybe I'll get involved in 5%. Maybe I'll throw him in super flex here or there. Yeah, cool.
Right. Couple small percentage, but nothing crazy. All right, this game is, for me, this is interesting. This Miami Clemson game, for a few reasons. Miami kind of stinks. Van Dyke is out, so we're getting Ja'Cory Brown, who at the minimum price and is a running quarterback. Now, Clemson's defense is pretty good, but recently they've given up some pretty big games. They haven't been shutting people down. They've given up points to running quarterbacks. Even Notre Dame's quarterback, Pine, ran in a touchdown against them. I think this is a spot where you can find a minimum quarterback who maybe has – listen, you don't need Ja'Cory Brown to throw for 300 yards. That's not going to happen, but you also don't need that, right? If he throws for 150 and 1 or 2 touchdowns and then runs for another 100 and a touchdown, he's going to blow out this price tag. And that's all you need from him, which is a very real possibility at 4,500 and not crazy ownership. So as my way of getting different, I actually like taking some shots on Ja'Cory Brown this week.
I do. I like that strategy a lot. And I think I'm going to play with Colby Young. At 3,900, I can really just pair that together. Colby had 3 good games early when he came back off injury. He's kind of shut down recently, but I think they could get him the ball. He got almost 10 points last week. 3,900. You pair these two together, you can get Bijan, you can get Deuce, you can get all these good players. So I like it. I like the way you're thinking here.
Young is definitely the guy to go with him. I don't know why they don't have him on the depth chart, but he's become a one receiver, so it's a little weird. But that's the guy to pair him with for sure.
Yep.
The other guy I would consider, if you want to go off of Young, is Brashard Smith, who's the bare minimum. And he has gotten 3 or 4 catches a week. Now, he's not going to break the slate with, maybe he gets 40 or 50 yards. But if Brashard Smith scores a touchdown at the minimum price, again, it's just more ways of getting super cheap and different.
Yeah.
On the Clemson side, the only really reasons I really want to target Clemson is if I want to just get involved in this game environment, hoping it goes a little bit over the projected score and get points out of pairing them with Brown. So the 2 guys I'm interested in are Shipley, who seems to be their main offensive weapon. At 6,500, it's a good price. This Miami run defense is their strength between the two, but I just don't think Miami's very good anyway.
Yeah.
And then at receivers, Antonio Williams, who had 8 catches last week. He's a guy they seem to be funneling the ball to at 5,200. He's certainly cheap enough as well.
Yeah, I like those two. I'm not on the quarterback. I just don't know what they're doing there. I know they're trying to make it DJ, but at any given moment, he could be yanked. So focus on the running or passing game. Shipley at 6,500, really, I agree with you. He's their main guy. Miami's defense pretty good against the run, but 6,500 is good for a guy that's going to get 20 touches.
Yeah, and Shipley, we've seen enough. Any week, Shipley can go off for 2 or 3 touchdowns and completely, break the slate. So,
yep.
All right, I'm going to look at this NC State Louisville game. I don't think has news been updated on Malik Cunningham yet.
Not yet, at least not of this morning. I think they're going to try and play him. They're fighting for bowl eligibility, but I haven't heard yet.
I mean, that's going to be big. I mean, if Malik Cunningham plays versus if he doesn't, it's going to mean a lot on this Louisville offense. The main factor for me is going to be their number 1 receiver, Tyler Hudson, who's had a few big games. He makes big plays. And if you look back, the last couple of weeks, NC State's been burned by top receivers. They've given up some big days, and I feel really good about it with Cunningham. Without Cunningham, I'd have a little hesitation because they don't know how good of a thrower, how good of a connection they'll have. But I like Hudson this week.
Yeah, I like Hudson a lot. This game could be in the 30s. So just be a little careful in this game. Don't pick at it too much. I probably won't even play Malik this week, even if he does play, just based upon the style in which both these teams play. But I like Hudson. I think he could get volume, especially if Malik's back in.
I totally am with you there. All right, we have the Ohio State-Maryland game. This game's interesting in that Maryland is just not the team we thought they were coming into the year.
Yeah.
Maryland's pretty good on defense. They're not great, but they're not bad on defense. And they're not that explosive on offense against this Ohio State defense, which is, strong. I'm not going to be targeting anyone on the Maryland side to go against this Ohio State offense. However, Ohio State's matchup proof. And while Maryland on defense is better than I think we've thought they would be, they're not good enough where I feel like they're going to slow down Ohio State's offense. So I think pretty much all the playmakers on Ohio State are in play.
Yeah, I agree. I love, especially in cash this week, but love Marvin Harrison. I do like him in tournaments too. It's going to be interesting with this running game. It looked like Mayan Williams got carted off last week, and then Travion Henderson's kind of been limping since the Penn State game. If somehow, some way, both don't play, and we don't know, and we won't know probably till 3:00 today. So be careful. But Dallin Hayden at 3,700 could become an all-star for your squad today. You're going to have to play some risks to get there because, again, late news is what we're going to be waiting on. But Hayden's my guy, especially if those two are out. If either of them are in, I'm not playing them.
And the shame of it is there's 2 other running backs in the in the 3K range that you can play that played before them. So if it ends up getting news, you're stuck. So yeah, if you played earlier, you could take the risk and then see the news. But I don't know if we mentioned also. I don't think we did. Richard Reese on Houston, right? Is that his name? No, it's not.
No, Baylor is Richard Reese.
Yeah. What's Houston's running back's name?
Oh, it's I got it down here.
Sneed.
Yeah. Yep.
Sneed. He's 3,800 too, and he's certainly in play just because of the game environment and his price. So, all right. Did we hit the last game? Yeah. So the last game of the day is going to be Penn State Rutgers. Rutgers down the street from us here in Jersey.
It's probably middle of us, Joel. If I think about it, it takes me maybe an hour and a half to get to Rutgers. Maybe it's hour 15, probably.
Dave, I want Rutgers to be good. I do. Rutgers, but they stink, and they still stink.
The one year they were good, and they lit up the Empire State Building or something in red lights that one Thursday night with Shiano. I remember it was so much fun, but oh man, it's going to take a miracle for that team to be anything.
Yeah, they're gonna get killed today. So
yes,
it's gonna be bad. The only guy on Rutgers you can even name is I don't even know how to pronounce the running back name. What is it? Monangai? How do you say his name?
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Cruikshank, but they both are tough.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the running back went off last week. It wasn't against Penn State. It was a much different matchup. If they give him 25 carries again today, maybe he gets there at under 5K, but this is a much better defense than he's facing. I have a hard time seeing that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not playing anything on Rutgers. There was that one blip on the radar early in the season, that Michigan game we've talked about against Penn State. But since then, they dominate these bad teams. So, yeah, I'm off anything on Rutgers.
Yeah, I'm with you. On the Penn State side, this passing offense just hasn't been very explosive. I don't think this is a good spot to try and target them. The only guys I'll look at are Singleton and Allen, their running game. I prefer Singleton. He's the more explosive. He breaks bigger plays. Both of them under 6K make them viable, but that's really all I'm considering here.
Yeah, I agree. I think both them, you could even get funny and play both. The problem is one's going to steal from the other, so you probably don't. You're going to want to mix in some Singleton, some Allen, and probably keep them separate.
Yeah, I would. And the issue with them is because they both play so much, they almost eat into each other, so it kind of dilutes the value of each one, knowing they're going to have to share. But against this pretty bad Rutgers team, they certainly are going to have the capability of getting there.
And you make a great point about the home run capability. So when you share, you got to be able to maximize your carries. And Singleton's the one that could probably do that more than Allen. Allen's good out of the backfield catching the ball, so he's better against these Michigans, Ohio States when they're they can't necessarily move it on the ground or hit a home run. So, yeah, today I like Singleton for those reasons that you said.
I love it. That is a wrap for this morning. It's going to be a fun slate. A lot of games, 14 games. I think more than most weeks, there's some obvious game environments to go after. So there's maybe the 4 or 5 games we mentioned where we really have our plays of the week. Go after those games and fit your guys in. Any parting words for the fans today, Dave?
No, but let me give a shout out to Yvonne real fast. He writes a great article for Win Daily Sports. He's dialed into college just as much as us, very successful in the DFS college world. Thanks for checking in, Yvonne. Always love hearing from you. So with that said, don't forget to hit the like button here and subscribe on our YouTube channel. We're out here trying to put some content to help you win at college football, but we also have so many other sports that we're doing with NBA, NFL, hockey, running hot, and we'll even start getting to some college basketball soon down the road as college football starts to hit the bowl season. So, as always, subscribe to WinDailySports.com, hit the like button, and thanks for watching.
$5.99 a week. That's it. Good luck.